It was here in this region that one of the most decisive battles of World War I in the Middle East took place, the Battle of Megiddo campaign sweeping through these plains in 1918, reshaping the future of the region. Even modern warfare passed through these lands. Tel Afek has seen it all. Canaanites, Egyptians, Philistines, Israelites, Greeks, Romans, Ottomans, British forces, layer upon layer, century upon century, and still it stands. This was a city of Roman bureaucracy, the place where Paul the Apostle was brought for safety on his journey to Caesarea as described in the book of Acts. But the story goes deeper than Rome. This structure here is very small. It's tiny. In fact, today, the average man will find this place to be so, tight for him to live here. Yo, the enemies are coming. There are places where history whispers, and there are places where history stands up, looks you in the eyes, and refuses to be forgotten. This is one of those places. Welcome to Tel Afek National Park, a land where empires rose, armies marched, and time layered itself like sediment beneath your feet. The first thing you notice is the wind. It doesn't just pass through this place, it moves with memory. Perched above the plains near Rashen, Tel Afek rises like a silent guardian over the Yarkon Springs. From a distance, it looks peaceful, it looks green, it also looks calm, but step closer and you begin to feel it. This is not just a park, this is a battlefield of centuries. I have to get my ticket. So I just bought my ticket to enter the Tel Afek National Park. Ticket costs 31 shekels for an adult. Tel Afek National Park, Antipatris, in central Israel, is a 5,000-year-old archaeological site spanning from the Calcolithic period to the Ottomans, strategically located on the ancient Via Maris. The key features include a massive 16th century Ottoman fortress, Binar Bashi, Roman-era city ruins, Canaanite structures, and a 1930s British water pumping station, all surrounding the Yarkon River sources. The Tel Afek National Park is not just a park. This was once a battlefield. You walk toward the fortress, the massive stone structure dominates the hilltop. Powerful, symmetrical, unyielding. This is the Ottoman fortress, known as the Binar Bashi Fortress, built in the 16th century. Its thick walls glow golden under the Israeli sun, carrying the weight of soldiers who once stood watch from these very towers. You step through the archway. The temperature drops. The air inside is cooler, quieter. Your footsteps echo against stone that has endured sieges. revolts, and the march of countless boats. You imagine Ottoman guards scanning the horizon, watching caravans move across the plains, protecting the vital water sources below, because water was everything. The springs of the Yarkon were not just beautiful, they were strategic, they were survival. So join me as we explore Tel Afek National Park and get to see the Antipatris Fortress. The uphill challenge. The water system was planned by the British Mandate government so that the water would ascend gradually in the opposite direction of its natural flow, from the low Yarkon Springs to the high Judean mountains. To overcome the height difference, 800-meter 4 pumping stations were built, which sent the water up through a pipeline 62 kilometers long. No life without water. The picture shows people waiting in line for water in Jerusalem in 1930. Water is essential for human, plant, and animal life. Much of Israel is desert or arid land, meager in water sources. The amount of rainfall in Israel is barely sufficient for the population, which is continually growing, and so creative solutions have always been needed to obtain and use water. Thus, it's our responsibility to use this resource wisely and sustainably. The British-era water pumping station at Tel Afek National Park is a significant Mandate-era industrial site built in the 1930s to supply drinking water to Jerusalem. The British established this facility to tap into the Rashen Springs, the source of the Yarkon River, which was the region's second largest freshwater source. Water was collected from the springs, passed through filtering pools for cleaning, treated in a chlorination structure, and then stored in an underground reservoir before being pumped through Shar Haggai to Jerusalem. Jerusalem's first modern water system. The water system to Jerusalem, which was built between 1933 and 1936, was the crowning glory of the British Mandate government's numerous development projects in the land of Israel. The system channeled water from the Yarkon Springs to Jerusalem, whose inhabitants suffered from a shortage of water. It was a turning point for Jerusalemites, who until then had to rely on collecting rainwater in cisterns. The water system, modern for its day, allowed the city to increase its available water to an average of 4 million cubic meters per year and to provide a regular supply to faucets, which were installed throughout Jerusalem for the first time. Channeling water from the Yarkon Springs to Jerusalem, 1936. During the 1948 War of Independence, the station was a site of heavy fighting. It was occupied by Iraqi soldiers before being captured by Israeli troops. The building's concrete walls still bear bullet holes from these battles. Guys, can you hear that? Drilling a well, digging to reach springs deep in the ground, pumping, removing water from the well and channeling it for further treatment. Visiting this site today. This station is located on the banks of the Yarkon River near the park's back gate. Visitors can see the original pumping house, the sinking and filtering pools, and the chlorination building. The nearby buildings that once housed British offices and soldiers' residences are now used by the Israel Nature and Parks Authority. The station is situated in the Tel Afek area of the Yarkon National Park, distinct from the modern Mekorot industrial pumping station located further west. Imagine standing on the slopes of Tel Afek, a site where layers of history, Canaanite, Roman, and Ottoman rest beneath your feet. By the 1930s, the British Mandate faced a modern crisis. Jerusalem, a growing city of spiritual and political importance, was desperately short of water. To solve this, British engineers turned to the Rashen Springs, the source of the Yarkon River and the second largest freshwater source in the region. And the first time I was here, I don't remember seeing all these things here about water. But now I have come to understand that water was being channeled from here to Jerusalem using the Yarkon stream. In the mid-1930s, the British began an ambitious project to pump water across 60 kilometers of rugged terrain, lifting it nearly 800 meters in elevation to reach the Holy City. The complex you see today at the Yarkon National Park was the heart of this operation. It wasn't just a pump, it was a sophisticated treatment facility. Water was collected from the springs through pipes, moved into filtering pools to remove sediment, and then sent through a chlorination structure to ensure it was safe for the thirsty population. The pumping station itself is a stark functional concrete structure, a sharp contrast to the nearby 16th century Ottoman fortress of Binar Bashi. Look closely at the walls, and you will see pockmarks, bullet holes from the 1948 War of Independence. Because water was a strategic asset, this station became a battlefield. It was occupied by Iraqi forces before being captured by Israeli troops to secure the water line to the besieged city of Jerusalem. As you keep walking and exploring the Tel Afek National Park, suddenly it hits you. You are standing in a place that has been contested for over 4,000 years. Long before the Ottomans, long before medieval armies, there was Canaanite Afek, an ancient city mentioned in the Bible. It was here. Scholars believe that the Philistines gathered before battle. It was here that the Ark of the Covenant may have passed through during one of Israel's most tragic military defeats. You walk down from the fortress and follow the archaeological paths. Stone foundations appear in the earth, remnants of walls, homes, and gates. They don't look dramatic at first, just stones. But when you pause, when you imagine them whole, you see markets bustling. You see traders shouting in ancient tongues. You see warriors sharpening bronze blades. Tel Afek was once alive with ambition. This was a very beautiful fortress built during the Ottoman period. Antipatris Fortress, Tel Afek, in Yarkon National Park is a historical strategic site occupied for 5,000 years, featuring a prominent 16th century Ottoman fort, Binar Bashi, built in 1571 to 1574. It guarded the narrow Afek passage on the Via Maris trade route, sitting atop Canaanite, Egyptian, and Roman Byzantine city ruins, Antipatris. The site was a major city and Egyptian governor's residence from 1550 to 1200 BCE, known as Afek. It was a key location in conflict, including the Philistine battle against the Israelites for the Ark of the Covenant. Herod the Great rebuilt the city in the 1st century BC, naming it Antipatris after his father Antipater. It served as a vital junction on the road from Jerusalem to Caesarea and is mentioned in the New Testament. In Acts chapter 23 verse 31, the city was destroyed by an earthquake in 363 AD. Sultan Selim II constructed the current fortress, Binar Bashi, head of the springs in 1571 to 1574 to protect the water sources and secure the route. Modern era. Napoleon passed through in 1799, finding it deserted. During World War I, the British bombarded it in 1917. In 1948, the area was a strategic battleground for controlling the water supply to Jerusalem. Today, this site is part of the Tel Afek National Park, where visitors can see the Ottoman fortress walls, the Egyptian governor's palace, and the Roman Cardo. That is the main street. The Canaanite Palace. The remains you see here are of a large, impressive palace from the Middle Canaanite period, 17th century BCE. The thickness of the walls and the pillars in the center of the hall you see below attest that it was a main hall of extraordinary value, uniqueness, and magnitude, which served the city-state of Afek. The hall was surrounded by smaller rooms, one of which can be seen at left. The king who lived here controlled the Yarkon Springs and the important Afek Passage on the International Highway. To illustrate the appearance of the main hall, the Israel Nature and Parks Authority has reconstructed parts of the original floor and walls, as well as two tall wooden pillars that resemble the originals that once supported the ceiling. The kind of houses and structures they built. History is important. Now, when you look at these buildings, or at least the remains of these buildings, you tend to imagine and think how old these stones are, like thousands of years, and they still stand, at least some of them. This is awesome. Once again, this is the Tel Afek Antipatris Fortress. Let's read what it says here. The Egyptian governor's residence. Okay. The Egyptian governor's residence was used by one of the Egyptian government's outposts in the land of Israel at the end of the late Canaanite period, 13th century BCE. This two-story building measured 20 by 20 meters. The ground floor was made of stone and rose to a height of 2 meters, and the upper story was built of mud brick. This story was used as a residence and has been partly reconstructed. The upper story was accessed by a staircase that can be seen on the right after the entrance. A watering trough for horses can also be seen at the entrance to the building. Remnants of a fire and the arrowheads found in the ruins indicate that the residence was destroyed and burned in a battle. However, we do not know who destroyed it. Many finds were unearthed in the residence, including clay vessels, jewelry, remnants of frescoes, and 11 important documents and letters in various languages: Akkadian, Canaanite, Sumerian, Egyptian, and Hittite. A letter from Ugarit that was entirely preserved reveals the way of life at that time and the connection between Egypt and Canaanite kings. Let's go inside and walk in the palace of kings. Here it says, clay tablets bearing inscriptions in Akkadian cuneiform including lists of Sumerian words translated into Akkadian and Canaanite, such as God, hand, wheat, enemy, bull. Makes sense. Here it reads, weapons, jewelry, pins, and inlays that were found in the excavations of the Egyptian governor's residence. Interesting. So a governor apparently lived in these ruins. It's very small for a governor. Letter from Ugarit. Selected text from the letter of Ugarit. To hire the great man, my father, my lord, thus says Takulino, prefect of the land of Ugarit, your son and your servant from afar at the feet of my lord, my father I fall. For my father, my lord, may there be peace. May the gods of the great king, your lord, and the gods of the land of Ugarit bless you and keep you. Now, my father, my wish from my request to me dispatch, and my wit, may my lord return into the hand of Aduya, the man of Akko. Now, as a gift from my father, 100 shekels of blue wool and 10 shekels of red wool, called tabaru, I have dispatched herewith to you. Wow, nice. So, does it mean this letter was written on clay? Letter from Ugarit sent from the governor of the land of Ugarit, present-day Syria, to the Egyptian governor of Canaan, flattering him and begging for the return of his wheat through Aduya, the man of Akko, 1240 to 1230 BCE. Interesting. This structure here is very small. It's tiny. In fact, today, the average man will find this place to be so, tight for him to live here. But today we understand that it was a governor from Egypt who lived in this place. Very small, if you ask me. So if a governor lived in such a small place, imagine how small the average people of those days lived. I mean, people who did not have names for themselves. More so, poor people. Life was, I don't know what word to use for it in those days. So I would just say life was what it was. This means that today, the average human being should thank God for the life he has now. Because if you think you're suffering, and God asks you, would you like to go back to the Middle Ages? Should I send you back to reincarnate? Bro, you wouldn't like it. Maybe I'm a reincarnation of somebody who lived in the Stone Age. In those times, I would never know. But people say that if you're reincarnated, you will know for yourself if you were in this life before or not. I don't know if I was in this life. I want to think and believe this is my very first time being in this world. That's what I believe. Let's check some other place.
The Egyptian governor's house, building 1104 at Tel Afek Antipatris, is a 13th century BCE, late Bronze Age, Egyptian-style residency discovered underneath the later Ottoman fortress. It served as an administrative hub for the Egyptian Empire in Canaan, revealing diverse pottery and bilingual documents indicating a mixed local Egyptian elite administration. It is situated on the Acropolis of Tel Afek, inside the Yarkon National Park, now partly under the courtyard of the Ottoman-era fort. It is a 400 square meter square building characteristic of Egyptian residency architecture in Canaan. It was a key center for trade and administration, with findings including locally produced Egyptian-style pottery and luxurious imported items. Excavations unveiled tablets in Akkadian, Sumerian and Hittite alongside Egyptian-style artifacts proving that the city was a significant administrative hub. The building was destroyed by fire in the late 13th century BCE. The site provides evidence of the strong Egyptian presence in the region during the 1550 to 1200 BCE period.
Wow, this is a very beautiful view.
Unlike typical Canaanite palaces, its design followed Egyptian governor's residency model seen at sites like Amarna. It likely functioned as a collection point for agricultural taxes, evidenced by two massive wine presses discovered adjacent to the building. Excavations yielded a wealth of international correspondence, including a complete clay tablet written in Akkadian from the prefect of Ugarit to an Egyptian official. The ruins are situated on the Acropolis of the Tel, directly beneath the courtyard of the much later Ottoman Binar Bashi Fortress built in 1571. The residency was destroyed around 1230 to 1200 BCE, marking the end of the Bronze Age Egyptian administrative presence at the site. Standing at the entrance of Tel Afek National Park, it is hard to believe this lush, green oasis sits just minutes away from the hustling and bustling city. The Yarkon River murmurs nearby, a contrast to the dry, historical heat that seems to radiate from the mound itself. What was my goal today? To walk through the layers of time, starting with that imposing structure on the hill, the Ottoman fortress, Binar Bashi, often called Antipatris. As I walk up the dirt path, the massive sandy-colored walls of the fortress rise up, a 16th century sentinel guarding a path that has been fought over for thousands of years. Stepping through the arched gate, the air immediately felt different, cooler, quieter. The interior is a massive courtyard, partly in ruins, partly standing strong. I ran my hand along the limestone blocks. They were rough, bearing the marks of centuries of wind and war, built by Sultan Selim II around 1572. This was more than just a fort. It was a secure caravan station, guarding the crucial Via Maris, the ancient highway from Egypt to the north. I could almost hear the bustle of camels and traders resting here.
Wow, so narrow.
I climbed the narrow stone stairs to the ramparts. The view is breathtaking. Looking westward, I see the shimmering blue of the Mediterranean Sea in the distance. To the east, the hills of Samaria. From up here, you realize why this place mattered. Whoever controlled this pass controlled the land.
I think this was a surveying place. This doesn't actually look like a living place. Why? Because these holes here meant to be for arrow shot. I like making tours and explorations. I like visiting historical places, and I like knowing old things, because whatever I'm knowing today, whatever I'm exploring today, of course, are not new. So they are very old and ancient. The most important thing in this life is to extract information, knowledge. Whatever you're going to do with it is left for you. But what I can say is that it's good to know things. It's good to know about the past. It's good to have idea, knowledge about things that happened even before we were born. Because it doesn't hurt knowing things.
Descending from the Ottoman fort, I moved to the outskirts of the mound. Here lies the true Antipatris. I walk along the excavated remains of a Roman Cardo, the main street of a city built by Herod the Great in honor of his father Antipater. It is humbling to walk on stones placed here 2,000 years ago. I stopped to examine a section of the road where the grooves of cartwheels were still visible in the stone.
Here it says the Roman Cardo, a remnant of the main street of the Roman city of Antipatris. Cardo is the name for the main north-south street of the Roman-era city. Shops lined the Cardo, and at its center, it was connected to the Forum, the city's central square. Grooves can be seen in the paving stones carved over the years by the wheels of vehicles rolling along the street. The lookout tower on the Cardo was constructed during the Ottoman period, long after the street had fallen into complete disuse.
Near the edge of the fort, the foundations of a Roman Odeon, a small, intimate theater, are exposed. It's quiet now, but I imagine the sound of music and debate that once filled this space. This was a city of Roman bureaucracy, the place where Paul the Apostle was brought for safety on his journey to Caesarea as described in the book of Acts. But the story goes deeper than Rome. Beneath the Roman stone lies the Bronze Age, Tel Afek.
This definitely was a road, and by my assumption, it was a major road in that period. If you had to come to this fortress, you had to walk this very road. So apparently I am walking where the ancestors, I should say that, though not my ancestors. In fact, my ancestors. Why? Because whether we like it or not, we are all connected. So I'm walking the very road my ancestors, your ancestors, walked, that led straight to the Antipatris fortress, even though as of their time, they weren't able to make videos. There were no vloggers, no YouTubers. But today I can comfortably make video where they walked.
As the sun starts to dip, casting long shadows from the fortress tower across the artificial lake, I make my way back. The Antipatris fortress is no longer a place of war. It is a place of memory. It teaches you that nothing is truly lost. It is simply buried, waiting for a quiet afternoon to be rediscovered. As I leave, I take one last look at the silhouette of the fort against the sky, feeling a quiet gratitude for the time I spent in its shadow.
Everything here is written in Hebrew, but it seems this is a memorial site.
It was wonderful to visit Tel Afek National Park. Tel Afek does not shout its history, it lets you feel it. Walk further and you'll find remnants from the Egyptian period. Yes, even the ancient Egyptians once held this city. Pharaohs extended their influence here, recognizing its strategic importance. The land was a crossroad, linking Egypt to Mesopotamia, north to south, east to west. Trade routes crossed here. Ideas crossed here. Religions crossed here. Tel Afek was not just a city, it was a gateway. As afternoon light begins to soften, the stones change color. Golden becomes amber. Amber becomes deep bronze. Shadows stretch across the ruins, outlining foundations like sketches of a forgotten blueprint. You stand where gates once stood. Imagine wooden doors towering above you. Imagine guards announcing arrivals. Imagine the tension before battle. It was here in this region that one of the most decisive battles of World War I in the Middle East took place, the Battle of Megiddo campaign, sweeping through these plains in 1918, reshaping the future of the region. Even modern warfare passed through these lands. Tel Afek has seen it all. Canaanites, Egyptians, Philistines, Israelites, Greeks, Romans, Ottomans, British forces, layer upon layer, century upon century, and still it stands. Turn back toward the fortress. Watch how it silhouettes against the glowing sky. It no longer looks intimidating, it looks timeless. Tel Afek is not about ruins, it's about continuity. It is proof that land remembers. Even when people forget, the Yarkon continues to flow, just as it did thousands of years ago. The sun continues to rise over these plains. The stones continue to hold their silent testimony, and you, yes you, standing there in the fading light, become part of the timeline. Just another visitor in a place that has welcomed conquerors and pilgrims alike. Just another heartbeat in a land that has endured them all. Tel Afek does not demand awe, it earns it. And as you walk back toward the entrance, the silence follows you, heavy with stories, rich with memory, powerful in its stillness. Some places you visit, some places stay with you. Tel Afek stays, long after the gates close, long after the sun disappears, long after your footsteps fade from its ancient ground.